Well, it is incredibly devastating for the sector. We have 1 in 4 hospitality businesses who are not yet open. 21st of June was going to be the first day on which they could start trading again after nearly 16 months worth of closure. The last time they opened their doors was in March last year at the start of the pandemic crisis. So nightclubs, weddings, event businesses, conference businesses, music venues, for them it is incredibly difficult to be able to withstand another 4 weeks where they have no revenue coming in at all. For the remainder of our businesses, however, they're open, but they're not trading profitably. And every day they are trading with those social distancing restrictions in place is a day of additional losses. So it will cost the sector as a whole £3 billion to have these restrictions in place over another 4 weeks. And that there is a real double whammy, a perfect storm. At the same time as you've got to endure a longer period without good revenues coming in, the costs will start to increase for these businesses as government support starts to taper off from the 1st of July. So big bills hitting on rents, rates, which is local property taxes, and the repayment of government-backed loans starting. So there is no breathing space. You've got increased costs at the same time as you've got suppressed revenues. And for many, they will just simply run out of road.
So you said it was a perfect storm, but what is really the biggest problem facing the sector? Is it reduced capacity? Is it staff shortage, or the uncertainty that is surrounding everything?
Well, I think the uncertainty that surrounds it is hampering everything else. It feeds into staff shortages, it feeds into an inability to reach agreements on rents, it feeds into an inability to source funding. But crucially, we need that certainty that if there is this extension of 4 weeks, there is a clear exit strategy from it. We know the criteria against which it will be judged, and we have a fixed point at the end so that it's not an open-ended extension to the restrictions. But the biggest issue facing the sector as a whole, for those who are open, is the social distancing restrictions under which they are operating. With that in place, they cannot make a profit. They're continuing to hemorrhage cash. And on the back of 16 months worth of very restricted trading where they haven't made a profit at all, again, they are just running out of cash at a rate of knots. And the government support tapering at the same time is really quite critical. So the government could help the industry, one final heave, one final push to get over the last hurdle, extend that support measures, give these businesses a breathing space to get over 4 more weeks of restrictions.
So given all that's gone on, what long-term changes do you see for the hospitality sector after this pandemic?
Well, we're undoubtedly a much smaller sector than we were when we went in. At the start of 2020, hospitality was worth £130 billion, 7% of GDP, 3.2 million people working in the sector, 11% of all of UK employment. We are now just a third the size that we were in terms of revenue at the start of the pandemic crisis. And sadly, you've seen a contraction of more than 10% of premises numbers. So it will be an incredibly damaged industry that comes out, much smaller, heavily indebted because they've had to take on extra levels of debt to withstand that length of time without revenue coming in. So corporate borrowings, twice the level of corporate deposits, and that spectre of debt will hang over the sector for at least 2 years as they start to pay it down. So still a fragile sector coming out of the crisis, in need of help and support, and with a changing nature because of the change to international travel and working. The way in which we work in the UK has changed, so it will be particularly challenging circumstances for our town and city centre businesses.
Kate Nicholls from UK Hospitality, thanks very much for giving us your thoughts today.